So welcome again to C Snow's monthly training opportunities. I'm so excited to be here with all of you guys and to bring Erin with the state office to our group. All of you work with her very closely. She is our lead at the state, helps us to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do in terms of the CSBG grant. She is the fiscal compliance person for the feds, or for the federal office. And she had asked if, just maybe we could just have a conversation and to talk about maybe some questions or things that are going on in our CSBG world. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Erin Doak. Welcome.
Thanks, Susan. Hey guys. I already know most of you. For those of you that don't know me, like Susan said, I'm the program manager for CSBG. So part of, what we do is the fiscal work. We also have fiscal people here at the state. They do more of that fiscal monitoring and we work with them. But I wanted to chat with you guys today just to give you the opportunity to give me any feedback regarding community action plans. So we just completed the applications for FFY 23 and everything looks good. I think most of you have been getting emails about those are moving forward to the contract process and through the AG's office. But one thing that we've been looking at this year is, what do we think of the community action plans? Are they serving us in the way that we would want them to? Are there things that could be modified in that could help us more? Are there things that maybe are not helpful that we think need to be removed? Because now that COVID is, I don't want to say behind us, but to some degrees it is, right? I mean, we are surging, unfortunately, but it seems that we haven't been able to get it under control. So now we're just going to live with it. So in that sense, it seems like COVID is not at the front of people's minds anymore. And so at this moment, I feel like we're getting back to, community initiatives and what do we want to see in the future with community action agencies in Wyoming. So the community action plans within the application are a part of that, but I wanted to just have an open and transparent conversation and a dialogue with you all about how that serves us and how that could be improved, and maybe any weaknesses within that. So I am open, and I don't want anybody to feel shy, because obviously this is supposed to be something that hopefully we can learn something from. So feel free to put anything in the chat, or if anybody feels comfortable getting on, this is the opportunity.
Does anybody have any questions about what she's talking about on the community action plan? So your CAP or your community action plan is your plan. What you're going to do with specifically CSBG dollars. It was part of your application. If that isn't clear, I just want to make sure everybody understands what that means.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Susan. Yeah, so that was submitted by the folks. Oh, go ahead, Josh. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, maybe, and maybe I'm in the right line here, but I don't know. So Susan can tell me if I'm completely off base. So if we're talking about what we're putting together in these applications, I mean, the way that it's set up doesn't work for us. I mean, what I submitted last year got blown out of the water. And I'm struggling to get over now. So I think we run a little differently in Albany than maybe some of the other places, but I'm struggling to get the right information over to the county to get back to everybody.
So tell me more about that. When you say blown out of the water, what do you?
So we would have done, our last application would have been February, March of 2021 for this 2022 cycle that we're working through. We had planned to spend a lot more time in case management, working with a smaller number of families. And after that application was done, submitted, okay, here's CARES, here's ERAP. And instead of spending more time with a smaller number of families. We have hundreds of ERAP people coming into the office every month. That doesn't line up with what we said we were going to do very well. But we're trying to meet the community need as the agency in Albany that's also able to help with the ERAP applications and to get people that, you know, I mean, it's 15, 18 months of aid. So we don't want to ignore that because that can really help people. But the influx of clients that we're seeing is not what we had planned for in our last application.
Okay.
Josh, what I need clarification from you. When you did your mapping and tied your services that you put together in your application, I'm assuming you did not use housing as your primary goals. So you're not aligning with the services that are currently being provided with the goals that maybe you originally identified in your mapping. Is that happening too?
A little bit. You know, what we had put into our mapping was a lot more about ancillary type services, making sure that, you know, they're getting the referrals out, making sure that we're getting them hooked up with another program here so that we can continue to walk that path with them. And, you know, we're sort of the emergency, the last stop or the first stop, but then can we get them to climb? You know, can we get them over to workforce services? What's that next step that gets them that assistance that they need that we don't provide necessarily?
So do you currently use grants and aid right now for direct services or like gift cards or fuel cards or something like that? You don't have grants and aid?
So I do have grants and aid that's direct service. All of my funding has gone out for or is listed in grants and aid now this year. We've had that moved. But we did have things budgeted prior for, you know, can we bring in financial literacy teachers? Can we, you know, we had a much more, I think, defined case management plan that we were trying to move forward. That was the idea before ERAP. At this moment, there's just no way for us to, you know, I don't have the capacity for that. So what we're doing now is, you know, someone who comes in and we know that ERAP takes, well, it takes more than today to get approved. So if somebody's got a 3-day notice to quit, can we get them a month through CSPG while their ERAP application is being approved? And then ERAP gets approved and they're good for 3 months. You know, we try to see them for case management, but once that 3 months comes around, you know, we're out of sight, out of mind. We can only try to get them to re-engage during that time and before the next crisis happens.
So it feels like emergency services still is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys were hoping to move away from that. And do you feel like that's because, I mean, I realize that ERAP came about because of the COVID pandemic, but there's sort of all of this fallout now, right? Because of what's going on with the economy. And so I wonder, do you guys think that that's going to be changing or how did you adjust in this year's CAP in your community action plan?
I'd have to go look now. I'm mixing years. I'd have to go look at it. I'd say it's much more simplified. It went back to pretty much emergency services for shelter utilities. Because I don't know what's going to happen now with ERAP, and I didn't, you know, 3 months ago when we put that together. Are we concerned about the fallout? Absolutely. You know, I think our county, if I just looked at the dashboard, I think our county is at $3 million, which is 100 times more than anything we have ever done as an agency. We're not responsible for all that ERAP, but when we go back to what it looked like before, we are one of the only agencies that provides that emergency service and rent and utilities. So when we go from 3 million available in a year to less than 300,000, there's going to be a lot of people faced with a lot of different crises.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, when we're looking to the future, what is it going to look like? Especially when, we hear things about the market cooling. We know interest rates are rising, inflation rates are still rising. It doesn't seem like things are going to be improving anytime soon. Have you been having your conversations about these kind of things within your agencies? And anybody can feel free to answer on that.
So I can speak for the agency that I work for. We are having these conversations. We're very concerned about those, especially those on fixed incomes. It's one thing to be able to help people build assets or income, or the ability to help them grow income. It's much, much different when they're on a fixed income and they don't have the ability to go out and get a second job. So one of the things that we did consciously go into that intentional case management, brought teams on based on grant funding through ERAP, where we're fully staffed, where we have a tiered approach, where we do immediate emergency stabilization funding into the next tier, which is an intermediate step. Those intermediate steps are making sure that we can end the immediate crisis that they're in by making sure that they're signing up for SSDI if they're eligible, making sure that they're on SNAP benefits, that they're attached to WIC, that they're attached to any of the free and reduced, all of the things to stabilize that constant chaos. At that point, then, based on team and family decisions, we go, and that intermediate service really will last anywhere from 3 months to 12 months based on the needs of the family. We look at that as not necessarily forward progress, but as neutral progress, as a prevention piece that we're keeping them from moving down further into the defined benchmarks that we have. Finally, then we have family-centered coaching, which is taking those families to the next step, saying that we have to be able to either do some intensive job skill training, college, how do we plan for purchasing a home, how do we move forward that way, and that will be anywhere from 6 months to 12 months in length at that time, because we recognize that this ERAP money is going away sooner rather than later, right? So in the best case scenario, we know that ERAP is going to last us through September 30th, 2025. If it doesn't last that long, I know that my positions are grant funded and we don't have that. So our next step is a much scaled down version of what that intensive case management is going to look like, and specializing in resource referrals. And then we use CSBG as part of our CAP plan. As we're going through all of those, our CSBG dollars are being used to tide over for gas cards, fuel cards, phone cards, anything that they need to keep them employed, which in turn keeps them housed. So I'm also meeting my ERAP goals that are in there, and we're tracking all of those through the housing goals up to 120 days. That helps for a short amount of time. But the idea being is we have 18 months to move people off of dependence of ERAP. And if we are not taking that intensive case management step, then we're going to be in a worse crisis, housing crisis, at the end of those 18 months. We are already working with clients right now that have met their maximum 18 months, but we didn't have any case management for them. So we're really seeing that's the only way that we are able to really address those concerns about what are we going to do next. So some of the top 10 spending ideas that our federal partners sent down was food, transportation, gas, car repairs, insurance, titles, plates, school supplies, scholarships for baseball or camps or childcare expenses, working with your library and providing staff for summer reading programs, vaccination costs, wellness visits, paying for co-pays, paying for dental, vision, mental health, and burial assistance, agency upgrades in terms of all your Wi-Fi, upgrades to your online food pantries or online application processes, building your capacity, putting in small business support, and then job training. And all of those things are allowable expenses through your grant and aid money that you can be using. And that is funneling, if you don't have the capacity, Josh, to have your staff be able to do that, funneling that money out to a, what in your case would be a sub recipient of funding, to get that out to other community partners who can use CSBG dollars that you've contracted with them to provide a specific service. If you don't have the capacity within your agency or the staff members to be able to provide that, you can contract out money through your CSBG so other agencies can do that on your behalf. So I just sat through a whole long seminar on how the contracts look for that. And Caplock can help you, and Erin can help you get that all set up as well. So you can, if you can't do a lot of that case management, can you get it to the agencies who can?
Yeah, good. So, and I think that brings up another good point. And I would love to hear everybody's thoughts on this. But so, I think we all have seen how COVID has sort of exacerbated the wealth disparity in America, which has made things really tricky. But on the other hand, what Susan and Josh just touched on, I think, is that there's all this ERAP money, and that's wonderful. And we want to get that out into the community, but the capacity and the bandwidth is an issue. And at the same time, because there's all this ERAP money, in theory, there should be more sort of wiggle room with CSBG, because there's sort of this fund of money that's able to help with emergency services. So now we don't have to spend CSBG dollars on that, right? And so that's what Susan, I think, was just talking about, is all these other ways that you can spend money in sort of important and unique ways. Is anybody else doing something like that? Or do they have any other ideas they want to contribute in terms of maybe how CSBG dollars are being spent differently now that they might have ERAP money in their community?
I'd like to add, Erin, that we've seen a higher need come in because of ERAP. So it's not the normal average people, it's the ones that they've been accepted into ERAP, but their rental history is so poor that it doesn't matter what ERAP can do for them. And so those are the ones we're seeing in our Project Hope program with CSBG, is the ones that are beyond what ERAP can even touch. And so I feel like it's made our jobs easy in one sense, because we can kind of weed out the people that just need a one-time assistance, but harder in another, because it is taking so much time to find them a rental that will accept them because of their horrible rental history. And that's where the case managements come in for us over in Cheyenne, because our housing is so limited right now that landlords are being super picky, which I'm sure is true across a lot of the state. And that's been our big struggle with ERAP being present, and just the high needs that we've seen coming through our doors.
Daphne, we had to do the same thing. We had people that had, I couldn't place them in hotels anymore because they were trashing hotels. There are no rental places. We had to actually help relocate that person to another community where they had other supports. And those other things like IDs, and Josh, you have, oh, sorry, that was, never mind. Those other case management pieces, a lot of times we're finding in communities that don't have shelters or any other type of transitional housing, that we're having to do bus ticket management and case management. And that's my heartbreaking piece when we have to do it that way. But there are realities that some people cannot benefit from ERAP. They can't rent anywhere. And it's either live in your car or I have to help you locate a place where you can have a support, and CSBG money can help with, your CSBG dollars can help with that too.
I was gonna add to Josh, I don't know if you guys hold the ERAP in Albany County. We have it here. And so it's been really nice to have ERAP down the hall and be able to talk to them about different clients. But we've created a working like housing document that ERAP and CSBG works on. And so if we have a landlord that accepts the letter of intent, we just make a quick note, LOI. If they accept ERAP for the regular renters, we just make a quick note on that housing document. And so it helps because we've got 3 CSBG case managers and 3 ERAP case managers. We're all working on that document. If we talk to a landlord, we can update that in real time. That's really helped us because then we know, hey, this landlord is accepting the letter of intent. Try them, they're probably a little bit more accepting, if you will. And then we've also tried to build on those relationships with the ones that are accepting the letter of intent because they're few and far between, and just trying to educate them on what we can assist with our programs to kind of keep them on our side and keep them accepting that letter of intent. And that's helped as well.
One of the things that we did in Converse County, we're running a program similar to Susan's, is when we looked at our CSBG grant, last year we had agreed to help like 87 people. And I was by myself and I ended up with over 350 files. And it's super overwhelming. And so when I went to my board this year and I asked them, I said, can we allocate a percentage of our funds to emergency services and to non-emergency services? Because that's how we have our CSBG grant dedicated. That way, I didn't have to sit there and handle 300 clients for emergency services, and I could get to that intensive case management that I wanted to. And so once that we reach 25% in our new year, I'll be able to tell people that we've run out of funds in that category because that's what's in our bylaws. And so that was really an important thing for me, because how was I going to report and put everything in cap 60 for that many people? And it just really became super overwhelming when I wasn't able to control the number of applicants or the number of services that I had typically, even using averages. So that's kind of what we did. We did an emergency packet up front. So we have a self-sufficiency matrix in place in the ERAP office. And if they are anywhere lower scoring in the housing, the food, and the safe environment, then we hand them an emergency packet that has all of the resources for our community in it, along with a gift card, not from CSBG, but from an outside organization for $25, just so that we kind of can get that emergency need met right away. And we don't have to fill out the entire application for CSBG because it's an ERAP client. So that's maybe another way to lower the full amount of applicants that are coming to you, Josh, and the time that you have to really manage your case management. And it would have resources like we have a church in town that will give up to $500. They don't need to have their ID or anything else like that. So maybe finding additional emergency resources that you could help them get to. Churches in our community, we gave them all of those resource lists. And then if they come back, obviously they really do need help. But at least in that beginning, we kind of had a referral source. We have a local bank here that's pretty amazing. They started their own foundation because banks have to give money back. And so there's several resources in our community. We just had to dig underneath a couple of rocks to find them. So that might be something that you might consider as well, but really putting in the bylaws, because, you know, that's what the state says, you know, like you can do whatever you want, but you absolutely must follow what your organization has put into guidelines. So
exactly. And that's what I was just going to tell you, Amy, document,
yeah.
document, document, because if you put limits in, you can.
Housing.
Yeah.
We don't offer emergency housing at CSBG in my office. So no hotel rooms will we grant you, because our community, just like Susan said, we don't have a shelter. We have nowhere to send these people. And our police department's philosophy is bus tickets. So we are supposed to, support our community. And so we're just trying to make our program community encompassed.
I took that information from Amy as well. And we're like, yeah, we provide emergency stabilization services, but there's a cap. You only get this much money. And our case management is completely voluntary. But if you've expended the limits of what I can provide through emergency stabilization, we invite you to join us through case management and help you build all the skills necessary that you want to go. But at the end of the day, I have limited resources and more people that need those resources. And we've moved away from the idea that every month they they line up for their monthly gas card at the beginning of the month, because we found that to not be effective in moving people forward, or at least getting to a it's not preventative in any way, shape, or form. And so there are limits to those. And then we connect them with other community resources that might be able to help them. But if they're willing to engage and buy in and participate, then we're going to walk right alongside with them at the same time. And that's one of the hard things about emergency stabilization is you don't have unlimited dollars for that. And so I think in your, to bring this back to your CAP plan, Erin, do you have any suggestions of how an agency might be able to word their community action plan that allows them some sort of flexibility in being able to pivot? Because Roma tells us we have to constantly be evaluating, and we either abandon or strengthen. So is there language suggestions maybe you can help them with?
I think that's going to be a case by case basis, but yeah, I mean, we're always willing to work with any agency that feels like they need some flexibility in how they're spending their money. And I think almost everybody here has had to make a request about adjusting or funding something at some point, and we almost always approve it as long as it's allowable within the federal guidelines. We're going to say yes, and I think most of you know that my attitude is, yes first and figure out how later. So I always want to find a way to support people who are trying to get CSBG dollars out, especially because I feel like you guys know better what's best for your community than we do. So yeah, I think in terms of language, it's going to depend on each agency, but our whole stance is if you have policies around it, you can do it. So if you're wanting to do something and you're not sure how to do it, see if you can draft or create a policy around that. And that's something that Susan and I are both willing to help with. And there's a lot of resources around that. So don't ever feel like you need to reinvent the wheel. I think that's another big thing, is make sure you're using the resources that are around you, because we're all here to support you. And a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do has already been done before. So let's make it easy on ourselves, right?
Erin, I have a quick question. Can you remind us what the state's guidelines are for budget adjustments? I know CARES Act was under 30% line item to line item, right? What does that look like on our regular fiscal year requirements? Because if you put all your money in grants and aid, we don't give the state specifics on how we're spending grants and aid. We do that through our mapping. But what type of notification, what kind of communication would you like from the sub recipients about budget changes or requests for how they reallocate their funding?
Well, I think it's important for them to go through whoever's being funded by the state, right? So whoever is awarding them their funds, and then that agency typically needs to go through their tripartite board. And so that tripartite board should be doing their best to follow the policies that they have in place. Then if there isn't a policy in place, then we're happy to assist in that way. But I think it's important that they follow the process to make sure that they're going through the tripartite board, because the whole reason the tripartite board is there is to make sure that they're getting these different voices from the community to ensure that they're really doing what's best for the community. So I don't know, did that answer your question, Susan?
No, I think, what is the amount that they have to go check with before they take it to the tripartite board?
Oh,
Because
that's,
they can move some things around internally, but at
yeah.
what point do they have to ask for the allocation change? Is it 20% of funding or?
Yeah, it is 20%. And again, that's going to kind of depend on each agency, right? So it is 20% according to the contract. But if your grantee or the person who's awarding you the funds says that they want to have communication at a lower amount, then that's up to them. But yes, according to the contract with the state, it's 20%.
And if you're a sub grantee, actually a sub recipient like Josh is, it's Sharon that has to do that communication and stuff. It's not Josh that has to come to the state. He goes to Sharon. Is that correct?
Right. And yeah, I acknowledge that that's kind of a bummer that there's all this hierarchy involved in working with the government, but it's kind of just the processes we have to follow because we're all trying to just keep up with the checks and balances and make sure that we're doing our due diligence with, America's taxpaying dollars. So. Oh, you're on mute, Susan.
Sorry, that's a good question, Amy. There's a question in the chat. Is it 20% of the total budget or 20% of the line item?
I believe it's total budget.
That's what I've always kind of done it as.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're a sub recipient and you're not the one that is directly contracted with the state, then you'll need to go through your what's called an eligible entity or your grantee, and they are the ones that can approve and move things around on that level.
Right. And I am going to have to jump off here in about 5 minutes. So I just wanted to give anybody and everybody the opportunity one more time to sort of give me any feedback about applications. I think what Josh said was really valuable. Just letting me know that things really kind of were turned on their head. And I think if I'm understanding you correctly, Josh, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it just sounds like it's really hard to plan for the future. And although we thought COVID might have been behind us, it still seems like there's all these domino effects of what's going on with it still.
Yeah, and I, just understanding where we can get that flexibility, because I think, like others have said, I mean, we still have plenty of things that people need
Right.
and ways to get that money out. But, now it's a whole process, like you just said, with this hierarchy of things if we're going to change this, to change this, to change this, to get the outcome of this,
Well, and I would say, right. And we don't want to be an obstacle or a barrier for anybody, especially for you all working, in direct services and trying to help these vulnerable populations. It's so important that we try and be flexible with you. And I would say, work with Susan and work with me in the future if you can, and we can get that language really flexible for you guys. Like Susan said, most agencies just have their funds written as grants and aid. So what that means is they have a lot of flexibility in that funding. And that's really what we want to do for you. We want you to feel very flexible and autonomous with that money. We don't want to be this thing where it's like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. It should be yes, 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 I feel like. So however we can do that, however we can massage the language in your statement of work, we're happy to try and get that done.
And maybe that's just my not completely understanding all of this still, but we have most of our money in grants and aid. So I think all of our money at this point is in grants and aid.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, and I can absolutely help you with that too.
Yeah, it's about all of our local board likes to see or wants to see is stick it in grants and aid. So.
Okay. Now, do you feel like with COVID sort of moving behind us, do you think you guys are going to be able to work on case management, or do you think because of how inflation is, it's still going to be just sort of crisis mode for the foreseeable future?
I don't know. There's been a lot of changes. One big one here is, I think we had 8 or 9 trailer parks. We have 8 trailer parks in town. I think only one of them pre-COVID was owned by a corporate entity. At this point in time, there is conversation and rumor that our last private trailer park is in negotiations to be sold to a real estate company.
Okay, and these real estate companies, they raise the prices, I guess, or?
They raise the prices, they bring in beautification projects that our clients, you can't meet, right? These trailers are 1960s, 1970s trailers. There's no making them more beautiful. And so, we're hearing from people that they're getting threatened with evictions, they're changing the rules, they're looking for ways to evict them. Some of the companies are very much just trying to get them out. And this is where our people with fixed income, so like Susan said, this is where our fixed income folks live, because it's really hard to get into our 2 senior living facilities. So, they're on fixed incomes. There's not much case management we could do. Do you have your Social Security? Do you have anything left in your budget? Okay, where else can you find some money? What can we do? Because you're not going back to work, you're disabled or whatever's going on. There's only so much case management we can do. We can't manifest money for them. So, we do all of those things, but at the end of the day, right, you run into that roadblock when the cost exceeds what anybody can do. And in Albany County with the student population, I think I have 6 available units in town, and none of our folks qualify for them. So
yeah. So, and one of the ideas we're having, or I've been thinking about for the conference, I don't know if I've talked to Susan yet about this, but I think in this case, what it sounds like, Josh, and this is probably for a lot of communities, is advocacy, right? I mean, we don't want to do any lobbying because we're not allowed to do that. But one thing I'm hoping we can get some information on at the conference is advocacy versus lobbying. And so places like Albany County, and you're not alone in that, but the community sees this need, but it's almost like it's a community level problem, right? So, and this is also where community initiatives come in. Go ahead, Josh.
And we do that too. We work, I've been working actively with our city council.
Great.
Their housing plan suggests that the community right now is short a minimum of 1,500 housing units.
Wow.
So, we've elevated this problem, right? The housing issue itself. There's just too much demand and not enough supply. And, at this point, nobody can fix that unless I can build houses. So
Great.
And there are some discussions that are happening at the state level right now. There are some community development authority funding models that are out there that I kind of sent out to everybody. There are things in the works. That doesn't help us today. Josh, I'm in the same boat. Sheridan was short 990 as of yesterday. So I totally get the process, and there are conversations happening, and they're not happening fast enough. And Josh, this is kind of what I had mentioned to you earlier. Josh and I serve on the same board for the Wyoming Homeless Collaborative. And these are conversations that we're having as well. And at the end of the day, Josh, we need to get everybody to the table. It's done. We're done being siloed. We have to get at the table and talk as a group on how we're going to do this, because we have once in a lifetime funding opportunities that are available to us, and it's time to move now. Erin, thank you. I know you're on a time limit, and I am so grateful for you to come in and chat with us. You guys, she is just a phone call away. She is always going to be there to answer any questions. The state office and CSNO work hand in hand to be able to provide you with everything that you need, all the resources that you need to be able to do your job effectively. And I do understand the challenges when you're a sub recipient, because I used to be a sub recipient and the grantee. So it's crazy in there in a lot of different ways. I am going to stay on the call to answer any questions or collect them on behalf of Erin, so I can send them to her since she has to step out. Erin, do you have any final words or anything that you want to say before you have to go? I'm sorry you have to go.
No, that's okay. I appreciate everybody's time. And like Susan said, please feel free to reach out either via phone or via email. I'm always here, and I'm always happy to talk about anything related to CSBG or anything. So we just so appreciate everybody's hard work on this, especially obviously in a really difficult time. So thanks everybody for your attention. Like Susan said, give any other questions to her. Otherwise, you guys have a great week and try and stay cool out there. I know it's going to be super hot this week.
It's going to be bad. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. So I think there might be some information. I just want to share my screen with you guys really quick. I just sat in on a meeting with our national partners that are getting us ready to, because our biggest concern is that we are not spending down CARES Act money as much as we need to be, as quickly as we need to be. So there are some questions, but this, what I'm about to show you, can you guys see my slide that says State Association and CSBG State Office Care Spending?
Yes.
Okay, so on this one, I'm going to skip through all of this. This is what's happening from the federal office. They believe that our economic disruptions and economic instability is caused by COVID. So anybody who is experiencing any economic instability is caused by COVID, it's all covered in there, okay? So we know that inflation, the increased cost of housing, the increased cost of fuel are all allowable expenses. We all have a role to play. So they had top 10 spending ideas of how you guys can be using CSBG funding. And if you're using grants and aid can be used for all of this. When it says food, does that mean food pantry? No, it does not mean unless you are doing eligibility qualifications for each one of those items. How I got around that is because I can't give money directly to my food bank. I get $50 gift cards from my local Walmart and Albertsons, and that's part of once they fill out the eligibility, and I can get them, they qualify, eligibility, income qualify for food. I can send them down to get the things they can't get at food or food pantries, like fresh protein, fresh dairy, fresh vegetables, and that forth. So that's a card that we give out. Transportation, gas, car repairs. Car repairs are items that are being passed down the line because they can't afford them right now. You can pay for car repairs. You can pay for titling, insurance. School's coming up. You can go buy a ton of school supplies and give out backpacks to all the people who walk into your office and get them ready for school. You don't have to give them a gift card to Walmart or to your local mom and pop shop. Once they fill out the application and they qualify, boom, school supplies are ready to go. You can just hand out backpacks to anybody who walks through your door because they've already income qualified. Children and youth activities, we got scholarships for activities, childcare expenses, supplementing a summer feeding program with wraparound services. Can you give food directly to people? No, but is there a partner that you know through WIC or through any other at-risk population that can use some additional funding? You can help pay for vaccinations, and not just COVID vaccinations, flu shots, measles, any of the big ones that babies have to have, any wellness visits. For those people who have co-pays, you can pay for dental, vision, and mental health. A lot of people now, YO Help does a lot of this. Funeral expenses are an allowable expense that you can do with your CSBG money. Your rental assistance, of course, we already know that. For those of us that are getting TANF money, TANF is no longer allowing us to use TANF money for utilities or rental assistance, but we can use ERAP. My agency does first, last, and deposit for approved LOIs, so they can get the money the minute they find a place instead of waiting for the state. But you can use CSBG funding for rental assistance, utilities, water, phone, broadband, any of those other things that might help people. Community partner needs. If you know that you're working with a partner and you see that the Salvation Army, who is working with traditionally low income or at risk populations, need new laptops, need new software, need new cell phones, you can contract with them to help pay for that. You can help pay for technology for customers. Customer engagement is a big one. You can redo community needs assessments using your community dollars. You can do customer leadership training programs. You can partner with the university for job job placement programs. In Sheridan, we call ours Impact 307, but there's Impact Wyoming, and they help get low-income individuals on their way to joining their own business. An example of that is partnering with your DFS office to host daycare certifications so people can open certified daycare centers in their home. You're doing two things. You are adding to the open slots available for childcare, and you're helping somebody start a new business, which increases their asset building. You can do internal capacity. You can do counseling for your staff. All of our staff is tired. They're burned out. You can provide mental health services for your staff. You can find trauma-informed practices for staff, employee benefits, retaining your employees, increasing your recruitment strategies and marketing. We can help you get all of that done and get you set up on that. You can do the small business support. Partner up with your local Head Start office and see if there's low income entrepreneurs or mentorship programs that you can help partner with. Job training, we do for job training, it's like, oh, you need a job, but you don't have any of your welding equipment. Okay, so we can help you buy FR clothing, your welding gear, scrubs, the appropriate shoes. We can help get all of those things as you start new jobs. If here's a big one, and we're going to be talking about this later during a training session coming up, weatherization. There are literally billions of dollars going into weatherization programs across the state. These are going to require people to go in and help us redo homes and weatherize them. Do we need to send people to job training centers so they can learn HVAC or windows or insulation? Or do they know how to do this and they need to start their own business so they can contract with the federal office to provide weatherization services in their community, increasing their job and earned potential. And then again, pop-up events. These have been the #1 thing that we're seeing. If you have a diaper distribution in your center, you can buy diapers for them. Getting ready for school preparation, gas cards, vehicle repair, food. Food, you have to be careful because that is not a proxy outcome that we've talked about. But here's one thing that I want you guys to know about. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., there is a CAP Law conference for Wyoming. We're part of the Region 8 training. There is going to be a question and answer period with all of the latest legal guidance coming from the federal partners, and that is free. So I just sent out that information to your county people. If you want to learn more about that, please reach out to your grantee if you are not the grantee, and they will hopefully share that information with you. We have Casper Roma training coming up on August 4th in Casper. The Casper training will be at the Garden Hilton Inn. The room block, if you're planning on coming, you need to register and get your room block. Expires on Friday, so I cannot guarantee you our low hotel room rate if you do not block or reserve a room in that room block by Friday. And our conference date that Erin referenced is going to be September 27th and 28th. I'll be reaching out to each one of the counties to find out some different speakers or different presenters that you would like to see at the conference. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions for me that I can answer right now, or that you would like me to forward on to Erin?
Susan, will that training tomorrow be recorded?
It probably will be recorded. CAP Law tends to do that. So I will, once I will be attending, I will ask for it to be recorded if it is not. And at that particular time, I will share the link with you specifically. And Josh, can we, I will reach out later for a conversation with you.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, any other questions for anybody? Any comments, any questions, anything you want me to take back to the state office? Remember, CSNO is the state association made up of you. I advocate for you at the state region, and federal levels. I am your membership organization, and I provide the training and technical assistance that compliance requires. So when you get told that you have to do it a certain way, I'm the one that's going to help you get there. Never, ever hesitate to reach out to me. Elizabeth, what's up?
Technical difficulties.
Oh, did you have a question or did you need to say anything?
No, we just wanted to say thank you very much. Always informative as usual.
Okay. All right. So, hey, you guys are going to start getting some calls from Cap 60. We're going to be rolling over to the new engine in a couple of weeks here. So they are going to reach out individually to each one of you. Johnson and Sheridan County are going to be first. At that point, you will be fully rolled over to the new engine, which you guys are going to love, 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 because it's so much user friendly and makes so much more sense. So Sylvia and Abigail will be reaching out on that one. They will also be, they have asked to work with you guys as a group in one of our weekly or monthly trainings to show you everything that the new engine is going to be able to do for you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's coming up that you guys might need. That's it for me though. If there's no other questions and I don't see anything in the chat, I'm going to cut you guys loose early. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, Kayla. Bye, you guys. Have a great day out there.